Welcome to the Quantum Alignment Show for today. And I'm Elaine Correia, and since this is the month of February, which is numerology, has to do with collaborative communication in your relationships, I want to bring a new way for you to look at relationships in a way that's maybe you haven't looked at them before, and it's based upon your elemental, your personality, the elements that affect your personality. So you have a particular way that's kind of like your dominant style of communication. So I'm really grateful to be able to share with you today and share with you a new way of looking at the way you relate to people and the way you communicate, and invite you to become curious about yourself and the people that you work with. So first of all, I am going to share my screen here. Okay. Can you see that, Cindy? Okay. So,
seeing it fine, thanks.
Oh, okay, great. So my intention for this conversation is to give you kind of like a quick and simple way to recognize what drives you and what drives other people based on some of these very more invisible ways of influences that we are all affected with. So, you know, maybe you've seen relationships where people, they get along great, they're good, solid relationships, but they're kind of at odds with each other sometimes. I mean, they just seem to be talking at cross purposes, or they don't quite get what the other one's trying to say. It's like there's some hidden energies playing out that you can't see, and they can't figure out why they're not getting heard, or why this person just doesn't seem to understand them. So when you understand how you tend to react or respond based upon your elemental personality, you can understand your partner's tendencies, and you can adjust the way you say things, or maybe you hold off till the right timing to say things. And then you can also understand why people react the way they do. So first of all, we need to take a look at the elements, because I want you to have an understanding of what I'm talking about. So in ancient, well, I'll go backwards again. Oh shoot. I gotta start over. Just a minute, technical difficulties. Okay. So in ancient times, the ancient philosophers and healers, they related to the world through the elements. They interpreted the different things that happened in the world through the elements. And so, and it's real easy to see, because, like, you know, I'm sure you've been around fire, and you've seen it, you know, how it brings light and it warms, and then there's earth and there's air, and, you know, we need air to breathe. Earth, we walk on it, and water, you know, we are surrounded by water. Our bodies are mostly water, and, you know, we need to drink water. So in ancient times, they were able to understand that there's dynamics that happen between these elements. Everything is not just one thing. You know, there are certain characteristics that each one of these four elements of earth, air, fire, and water, they all have certain traits and characteristics, but it's when they work together that life happens. So the first element we'll talk about is fire. Now, you've probably experienced fire, whether, you know, you've been out camping, or even just simply in your house when you cook, when you heat and you cook your food. You know, fire brings warmth. It's bright, it's light, it's it's transformative. You feed, like if in a campfire, you feed it wood, and it burns it up, and it transforms it into heat and light, and it's very energetic. It moves, it dances, it's always active. Now, contrasting fire to earth, earth is very solid, it's very stable, it's very durable. I mean, you know, our planet's been here for billions of years. You know, we rely that our ground is going to be here. Some things happen like earthquakes and things like that changes that, but generally speaking, you know, we can rely on the fact that, you know, where we build our house, it's going to stay there, and earth has a lot of structure to it. Then we come to air, which is above the ground, it's above the earth. It's kind of like the bridge between the earth and the heavens. And air is light, and it's changeable. Think about the wind. You know, the wind comes from the south, and it comes from the north, and it comes from the east, and it comes from the west. And you know, shamanic traditions believe that whichever direction the wind is coming is what kind of energy is being brought to you. But we won't go there right now. But, you know, air is everywhere. It's what we need to breathe. And air actually can be a catalyst to a lot of chemical reactions that happen. And finally, we come to water, which water has many forms. It can be still like a mountain lake, or it can be, you know, strong and powerful like in the ocean, or it can be cascading down a mountain falls like a mountain stream and over waterfalls, and it can be you know, a lake, a river. You know, it has a lot of different forms. There's cycles that go with water. If you think about the tides, you know, they ebb and they flow. And water is a universal solvent. There's a lot of, it can hold a lot of particles, a lot of different life forms. It's just, there's a lot that can be held in water. And it represents the unconscious and stillness, and it's, you know, water goes deep. So if you think about it for a second, air and fire are above the ground. You know, air is all above the ground, although, you know, here earth has some air in it and water has air in it. But generally speaking, in more general terms, fire reaches for the sky and earth is in the sky, and water and earth are solid and they go deep. And water in particular can go deep. You don't see water above its surface. So just to kind of that kind of gives you a overall general concept of the elements as physical elements that we see in everyday life. So now I want to talk a little bit about the personalities of the elements. So if you have a fiery personality, fire has a reason. Their purpose is to activate people. And if you think about any fiery people you have in your life, like a Aries or a Leo or a Sagittarius, you'll realize that they're busy all the time and they're always doing something and they just never stop. And they're active, and they might be physical, or they, you know, athletic, or, you know, and then when they talk, they can be very blunt and very honest and just blurt out things, and then they go, oops, I shouldn't have said that. And they're passionate and they're enthusiastic and they're optimistic. And one of the things fire people seek and they fear is they seek recognition and they fear being rejected. Then you come to the earth person, who is very solid and very grounded and very practical. And you probably run into some of these people. You probably have friends that have some of these traits. You know, they're like the Taurus, or in the sun signs, or the Virgo or the Capricorn. And they're just really dependable. They're work focused, they're slow, and they're steady. And if you think about the tortoise and the hare, you know, the story of the tortoise and hare. Well, the hare is fire and the tortoise is earth. They're very slow. They plod along. They stay right on task. They don't get deviated. They, you know, and they're here to build things. And earth people seek financial stability, and they feel like the little inner critic that plays out in their mind is that they aren't doing enough and they should be doing more, and they aren't, you know, they aren't good enough, and that's the little critic that plays out that kind of affects their emotional state. So then we move to air, and air, like fire, is changeable. It's active. It's, you know, the air signs are Gemini and Libra and Aquarius, and so they're very keenly in their mind that, you know, they're not in the present moment at all. They're always thinking about the past, the future. They're analyzing this, they're analyzing that, they're exploring, they're curious, they want to know, they're just driven to know things, and, you know, and apply their powerful mind to it. And they, you know, they love to talk, and they have things to say. And sometimes if they're all stressed out, they just babble, but it drives everybody else nuts. But at any rate, air loves to think, and their role is to communicate. You know, they take ideas and communicate them to help connect people together. They seek connection, and they can feel very alone if they don't feel connected, and they need to talk to be able to feel connected. So then we have water people, and I'm sure you know some people that are like this, that are Cancer and Scorpio or Pisces, and these people relate to the world through their emotions. The air people relate to the world through their mind. They think about everything. They're detached from their emotions. Water people feel their emotions. They feel everything. Water is related to the unconscious, and it's very deep. And these water people are highly sensitive. So a lot of our highly sensitive, empathic people, have water in their charts. And water people like quiet, and they're more slow. They're like Earth. They're slow, and they're more flowing. They have that certain sense of stillness. It's like water can be still and go deep, and has a lot of wisdom. And they seek to avoid overwhelm. I mean, they feel everything. They feel everybody's emotions. They feel all the emotions on the planet, and it can be so overwhelming that they just have to go run and hide. But the job of the water person, of the Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces person, is to teach other people how to not be afraid of their emotions, and to feel them and to experience them. So they actually have a very powerful role. It's very hard because they have to deal with their own emotions and all the other emotions that they're picking up, and it's just so easy to want to go off and hide and leave everybody alone. So there's other factors now that come into communicating. So each one of these particular elements there's three phases. They have an initiating phase, they have like a stabilizing, a protective stage, and then they have like the harvest, the review, and the mutative stage. So if you're an Aries, a Cancer, Fire, or Libra, a Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, you have initiating energy. So the way you play out, whether you have your a fiery temperament, or your emotions, or your sensitivity, or your desire to connect, or your desire to be successful, this is you start things, you initiate things, you have the ideas, and you plant the seeds. And so what happens then in the next stage with these other signs, with Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, these particular signs take what has been planted, what has been initiated by the initiators, and they protect them, and they nurture them, and they support them, and they provide a stable environment so that whatever has been planted can grow and build and thrive. And so these people don't do change very well. They it's their job to keep things stable and to protect what has been initiated. And so, forget change. We need to stay here and keep this holding this pattern. So then once something has come to fruition, grown up and matured, then it goes into the mutative phase where the signs of Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces is like whatever has been created. The seeds have grown to maturity. They're harvested and they're reviewed. And it's like, well, did this work out? Well, no, maybe this did and maybe this didn't. And, well, let's make some changes here. And then we're going to start the cycle all over again. So these two things I really would like to, I hope I've explained them clearly enough so that you can get a foundation for what so for the stories I'm going to tell you next. So,
so you're going to give us some examples? Is that what it is?
Or? Yeah, because, it's easy to see the elements, but, what the fun part is, how do they work together? And, how does your strongest element interact with whoever it is that you're interacting with?
Well,
and so, first of all, I want to give you a little caveat, is I've like ultra simplified this, and there's a lot of other factors that play out in people's charts. And so, if you want to know more, just I'd love to, share with you all about yourself. Just contact me. But anyway, so what I want to talk about next is how do the elements play together? And I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Now, Elaine, can I ask you a quick question while you're stopping sharing?
Yes.
We did have Amy on Facebook said, I'm water and fire astrologically. Now, you're a human design specialist, and you also do astrology. So my question is, because you had given the signs, but it's more than just your sun sign, correct? That when you're figuring out the dominant or...
Right. Yeah. Oh, the two primary, most influential planets, we'll call them planets, is the sun and the moon. So that doesn't matter whether it's human design or astrology. Those are like the two most influential planets, because the sun is like your outward personality and your moon is what is hidden. It's your emotional personality. And, the sun is what people see, and the moon is what no one sees until something triggers it, Usually what happens is you'll see the moon play out when you get upset about something. And that's when, like a fiery moon, if a person gets upset about something, and usually it's, each element has its favorite triggers. Like fire does not like to be rejected. And if they feel like they're rejected, then they'll explode and say all sorts of things and be real vocal and outgoing and or loud and, just say it all. And then they'll kind of say, oops, I made a mountain out of a molehill. So yeah, but as far as figuring out so those are the two things to really look at for your elements. But as far as really getting a better picture, is actually to take all of the planets in your chart and see what elements they are in. Because most of us are in a lot of people have a blend, through a sprinkling through all the elements. And so they're pretty well-rounded sort of person. But, there's some people, like me, I have 6 planets in Leo, so.
You're very fiery.
I'm not well-rounded. But then there are things that temper things like that, because see, my fire is surrounded by water. So, and water and fire are polar opposites. And so
we'll probably get more of that when you share the stories. And
yeah.
And
Yeah,
I would
so
say that if someone really wants to know, I mean, after the stories, that they should contact you. But we'll get to that towards the end because you can
yeah.
go more deeply into their stories, correct?
Yes, yes. Oh, yeah, I'd love to go into different people's stories. It's so fascinating because when they see how they are and see who they're playing against, just a little light bulb goes off, and and then they have some more tools in their tool chest. But anyway, let's tell some stories. So now the different elements get along with each other differently. Now fire and air, because they're above the ground, they do really well together. They can, when fire and air come together, air has all these ideas and fire is so enthusiastic, and they just, they just go off planet. And so they go party. They just have so much fun. They're the life of the party. They can just get so wrapped up in something and so enthusiastic about something that they just forget about reality. So now, and earth and water, they also have a natural affinity because both of them are below, they go deep, but they're also very slow, and they like peace and quiet. And they kind of don't really like to get in touch with their emotions. The earth people say emotions are impractical. We've got, forget them. We don't want to deal with them. We're going to go work. And the water people say emotions are way too overwhelming. I don't want to deal with them. So, so they sort of have the same thing. Fire and air can get really detached from their emotions and talk about them. Oh, they're great at talking about their emotions, but they don't feel them. And fire, they can, they live from their heart. So they can kind of go both ways. Sometimes they express them more than feel them. So anyway, so we have one of my good friends. She was talking to me the other day, and she's got a fire sun and an earth moon, and her husband is a Taurus sun and a Gemini moon. So she was saying she wanted to paint the bathroom, and see here she's an Aries, so she's initiating. She wants to, start something. She wants to do a project. And so, and her moon is also changeable. So it's like, she saw something that needed to be done, and so she initiated some action. Well, her husband is a Taurus, even though he has and that is a fixed sign. So he's very stable. We got our feet down on the ground. We aren't going to change. We just leave things as they are. So she says, let's paint the bathroom. And he's sitting there in true Taran fashion in his easy chair, eating chips and watching TV. And he just kind of goes, So they've been married for 30 years, and they've got a good relationship. So, and she's learned the hard way that fire can singe, it can scorch earth if she gets too in his face about it, because fiery people are impatient. They want things done now or yesterday. And earth people are very slow and methodical, and they don't do change very well, especially Taurus, because it's a fixed sign. So she was kind of grumbling about that. And so she knows that the way you have to handle a Taurus is you got to plant the seed, and then you got to back away and let Taurus think about it. And the other thing that happens a lot between earth people, earth and water, and air and fire people is they operate on two different timing systems. So for an earth person to say, okay, I'll think about it, that means it may take a week or a month or a few months or a year before they come up with an answer. And now a fire person says, oh, I'll think about it, and they've got an answer in 1 minute. So, you can see why there can be some very interesting dynamics going on here, because the fire person says, come on, let's go. And the earth person says, I got to think about it. And so when you understand that that those two are operating on two different time frames, that makes a huge difference. You stop stressing about trying to get things done. So anyway, so then she said, she had asked him about this during the month, during November, when, you know, Scorpio was, the sun was in Scorpio. And now Scorpio is also another fixed energy. And so, you know, here's where the celestial events play in, is, you know, the sun, you know, goes through the different signs. Like right now it's in Aquarius, which is also another fixed sign, which, you know, means that especially if you have any Aquarius energy, you know, you're a little bit more fixed, you know, that it's been activated a little bit more. So anyway, she finally realizes, like, well, I asked him when the sun was supporting his fixed nature, and no wonder he didn't respond. And she asked about, you know, like a month later when the sun had moved into a new sign, and he was more agreeable. So that's kind of an example of how these dynamics play out. You know, if you understand some of these little subtle things, you can kind of work the timing so that you can maybe have a little more success.
I like that. Work the timing.
Work the timing. That's right. So, and some people need, you know, they just plain operate on a different time frame. So another friend of mine, she has a Scorpio sun and a Cancer moon. So she is like ultra highly sensitive, and she's very deep, and she's very slow, and she's very methodical. And her husband is a Capricorn, which is Earth, a business, you know, it's like the businessman, Earth businessman. And he's got a Leo moon, which Leo moons, if anybody has a partner that has a Leo moon or has Leo moon, they like to be pampered, and they like attention. Leo, just plain old Leo, likes attention. They like to be adored. They like to be pampered. They like to be loved. I mean, they want to be the center of attention. So, and a water person kind of likes her alone time. She, you know, water likes to withdraw from the world, just because, for one thing, you know, they got to process their own emotions. And so this is a constant irritant for her, even though they've been married for, I don't remember how many years, 20 years or something like that, you know, and it's a good solid relationship. But these are, what I'm talking about in these relationships is they're good solid relationships. It's just, these are the little bugs that come out, you know, every now and then, or they're like little irritants. And so she goes and she says, I have this project I want to work on. I want to be left alone, and I'll be left, you know, she's learned how to communicate what her needs. And so she says, I want to be left alone, you know, for 2 hours, because I have this project and I need to be able to think about what I'm doing. So he says, oh, yes, anything you want, dear, anything you want. So about 20 minutes later, he comes in to where she's working, and he says, the remote on the TV won't work. Can you fix it for me? And she's a little bit irritated, and she says, I'll get to it when I'm finished. So he leaves. And about 20 minutes later, he comes back. Oh, I fixed it. You know, and she says, all right, fine. She's getting a little frustrated now. And then he comes back again later. Oh, do you want something to eat? I'm fixing something to eat for us. You know, so it just drives her nuts, because, you know, water wants that stillness. They need that stillness. They need that quiet time. And here his Leo moon was wanting attention. And, it, you know, of course, this is, you know, then we're getting into personal stuff, you know, your own personal work stuff that needs to be done. But at any rate, so you know, when she understands that, it's kind of like, okay, well, just take your Leo moon and go out there. I'll be out and give you attention pretty soon. So then another situation is, now this is where both parties have fixed energy, and this can make change really difficult. So, you know, she has a Leo sun and an Aquarius moon. So, she's all above her, and it's easy to ideas, full ideas and everything. And her partner is a Taurus sun with a Leo moon. So he's very grounded, but he still wants to be loved and adored and pampered. And so she wants to quit her job and go do something else. And so he says, why do you want to do that? What's wrong with your job? What are you going to do for money? And she says, well, my heart's not in it. For Leo people have to have their heart into things, or it just doesn't work. Or fiery people, I should say. And so he says, well, what are you going to do? And she says, well, I want to open a tea shop. He says, you can't make any money at that. It's going to take too much work. And do you want to go down there every day, all day long and eke out a living? I mean, you got a good job right now. What's wrong with that? And so by now, he's kind of triggering some of her doubts. And so she's kind of says, well, so she backs off and she stays with her job for a while, but her heart's just not in it. So she brings it back up again. And, so that's how an earth person plays things out. They, they're very work oriented. They really believe in a strong work ethic, and they're also very concerned about financial stability, which, which is, a factor. I mean, they work to produce, to serve. So, but with both of them having fixed energies, it makes it really hard for her to change, and it makes it really hard for him to accept change. Because, so when she goes out and quits the job anyway, which is hard for her to do, then he gets sick. And so see how these things play out. So, and then we've got another person. Let's imagine you are going to a doctor. You've got a health problem, and you're going to a nutritionist because you don't want to do the traditional Western medicine. You've done that already. You want to find a better answer. You want to get to the root of the problem. So okay. So let's say you go to a doctor, a nutritionist doctor, and he's got a Sagittarius sun and a Sagittarius moon. So Sagittarius is all about adventure. He's fiery, it's like, and it's mutative. So it's like, let's bring change, this isn't working, so we're going to do it this way. And, it's adventure. And he's a philosopher, and he's curious, and he can be a little on the blunt side too. So, and then let's say that the person that's going to see him is a fire with fixed energy. And both fire and moon are fixed energy. And so here's this strong mutative energy, this energy that projects change and doing something new and different. And this fixed energy is kind of like got her feet dug in the ground. And so you can see how it can actually be kind of funny, because here he's saying, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do this, come on, it's going to work, and she's kind of like saying, I hate this diet, it's killing me, because she doesn't, it's hard for her to change. And so once you understand how these things kind of play out, then you can laugh at yourself, and you can just laugh at how you're responding to this other person, because it's just the way you're designed and the way they're designed, and the way you're, when you come together, if you understand that, if you don't take it personally, if you don't take it so seriously, then, you can find the humor and the blessing in it, and then you can relax, and then you say, oh, well, that's the way he is, and that's the way I am, and then you can move forward from there, because now you know where both of you stand. So I'd like to invite any questions or comments.
We had a question from Paige in the Zoom chat. Can a generator work with initiating energy, Sun Libra?
Okay, what was that? Can a generator work with initiating
energy if the Sun is in Libra?
If the Sun is in Libra?
So I think that's combining the two, a generator.
Right, right. And I kind of relate the generator to the, oh, what the heck? Oh, to the Earth. But yes, so that's where getting a more in-depth reading will help explain how that all works out, because the generator has to wait for to respond to something. And with the Sun in Libra, you're going to want to connect to people. That's kind of a theme of Libra, is wanting to connect to people. But it's hard to, there's a downside of the Libra air energy, is it's hard to make a decision. And that's where the generator part can really come in and be really supportive, is by, you have all these choices. I mean, you know, with air, you have, you're kind of like, you're drawn to this and drawn to that and drawn to this and drawn to that, because it's hard to focus on just one thing. And that's where actually being a generator can actually help you, guide you through this sea of distractions.
By using your sacral sounds and
by
having someone,
yes,
sacral, having someone ask you questions. Should I initiate this, or, well, should I start this, or start this game? And a lot of, like, you offer sacral sessions also, because sometimes it takes a good, and see if you agree, sometimes it takes a good human design specialist, because a lot of generator types aren't necessarily connected to their sacral, especially if they have a split. So sometimes you need help with that, and a good specialist can do that.
Right. And then it's been fascinating to combine the human design with this elemental astrology, because there's gaps that are filled. One fills the gap of the other, and it's just fascinating, because and it creates some very interesting paradoxes to think about, because you would think that, like for the gate 19, which is all about, you know, sensitivity and companionship and neediness and relationship, that's actually in Aquarius, and which is very interesting, because, you know, the low side of the gate 19, the expression is, you know, being needy and clingy and codependent in a relationship. But the theme of Aquarius is about being free and independent. And so, you know, so it's like you can think, well, the higher expression then of the gate 19 has to do with being in a relationship that is connected, you know, that strong connection, but it's not oppressive. It's like you are equals in this relationship, and that you can have a higher expression by being independent and free thinking and being able to you know, do things, look forward to the future type things, and think out of the box. So in other words, it'd be kind of like out of the box relationship, you know, in the higher expression of the gate 19. So I've had so much fun just putting these two together. And the other thing that I find is really fascinating is when a person has a lot of fire, like I do, and they're a projector, like I am, it's so easy to burn yourself out, because fire doesn't know when to quit unless it runs out of fuel. And so there's a projector. So, and then the other side of it is when somebody feeds the fire, throws wood on the fire, just like a projector borrows other people's energy, then they can just go and they blaze up, and they can do all sorts of things. So, you know, it's fascinating to see how these things work together, and they all work together to create each of us as an individual, unique person. We're specially designed with a particular role that we play in our world. We're all very important. So
now, Paige also had a different question on there.
Okay.
And this is kind of taking a step back. So if you're not familiar with astrology at all, her question was, are there different astrological signs for each planet? So this is like, let's go back to basic astrology.
Okay, so yes. So let's go back to basic astrology. Okay, we're familiar with the planets, you know, the sun and the moon and Venus and Mars and Mercury and all that. And they have, we'll call it, native signs that they are, we'll say, most affiliated with. Like Mars is affiliated with Aries, and Venus is affiliated with Libra and Taurus. So, but in your natal chart, the planets will be a snapshot of the sky when you were born, and they will be in certain constellations. And so, you know, you might have a moon in Taurus, and you may have, you know, your sun in Sagittarius, you know, or you may have your Mercury in Gemini. I mean, you know, so they can be all scattered around. So when you're born, your natal chart is basically a snapshot of where everything is in the sky. And in human design, that snapshot is converted to all the little I Ching gates, all the hexagrams. But in, you know, in astrology, you know, there's a sign and there's a placement, a house, or like a theme. You know, the house, they have 12 houses in the astrology chart, and each house has a particular theme, like, you know, how you value yourself, or how you communicate, or how you do your family, or you know, what's your environmental work practices, or what's your career. You know, they have a lot of, you know, so where the planets are placed will make a theme. And so it's you know, there's a lot to understanding both of astrology and human design. They're both very complex and powerful ways of understanding yourself. I don't know, does that make sense, Paige?
Well, that made sense to me. What Paige was saying, came back with a comment. She has, and Paige, I'm going to say what you have: Jupiter, since Jupiter is the planet, rising in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is the sign. So I just kind of rephrased what you said, because she said, I have Sagittarius rising in Jupiter. But I guess
okay. Okay, that's a little bit confusing. Sagittarius rising is like the sign where it would be like the eastern horizon when you're born. It would be whatever is on the eastern horizon, and so that's what they call the rising. It's a sign, and Jupiter is affiliated with that particular sign, but Jupiter may or may not be at that point. It might be somewhere else in the chart, but if it is next to where the Sagittarius rising is, then that's like a huge, powerful theme. That's, you know, the rising has to do with more like our soul's calling, what is, you know, what we're here to try to accomplish and to grow and evolve into. And so with that as a rising, that's a very powerful, you know, it's like, you know, Paige, you're here to bring a message, to be a teacher, you know, to bring a message that uplifts people and teaches them how to laugh at themselves. And especially if Jupiter's there, it's like this is expanded. It's expanded. This is like a big thing, not just a little thing. So I don't know if that makes any sense to you, Paige.
We'll see if Paige responds. Martha on Facebook says, in human design, with the top two signs determine so much, being the sun and earth, and astrology focusing mostly on sun and earth, how do you see the earth and what is its meaning regarding what you've shared? Hope this makes sense. Thanks.
Right. No, I've worked on that whole concept of Earth, because Earth in astrology is exactly opposite the sun. So wherever your sun is, whatever house it is, directly opposite is the Earth in the same degree. And so it's interesting because in astrology that's considered an opposition, which works. So the whole theme of that whole dynamic there is to figure out how to balance, have those two elements work together to fully express what's what you're here to, your personality. Everything funnels through the sun. And
Martha's saying she mentioned astrology. How do you see the sun? Oh, well, now she goes the sun and moon.
Oh, the sun and the moon, or the sun and earth?
Well, her new comment says I meant in astrology the sun and moon.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So the sun and moon, the sun is about your outward personality. It's what people say. It's how you respond to the world. You're kind of like your default way of relating to the world. So you may, if you've got a lot of air, you might relate to the world through your mind, through your thoughts. And if you've got a lot of water, you may relate to the world more through your emotions and through feelings. It's like when you talk, you say, well, the sun sure feels good today. Whereas an air person might say, I think the sun is out today. Or, I think the sun is warming so I mean, there's kind of like this difference that happens. But the moon is like the feminine part of us. It's the driving, it's what drives us. It's like what we desire, but we don't really see it. It's not obvious like the sun is. The moon is it's the easiest way to see the moon is when you get stressed, and then you're going to react with your moon. So if somebody pushes your buttons and you got a fiery moon, you're going to explode. And if you've got a watery moon, you're going to go off and cry. And if you've got an air moon, you're going to want to go, go connect with somebody and talk to them and share what happened and tell them the whole story. You've got this need to connect. And if you've got an earth moon, you're just going to get really busy. You're going to just throw yourself into your work, and maybe you'll clean the house or clean out the closet or do something, So, I mean, there's different ways of the moon. So the moon is like invisible, but it's there. It's just as powerful as the sun. It's just, but actually when you're trying to communicate with somebody, if you can communicate to their moon, you'll be much more successful at it. So like in the case of the Leo moon, if you can communicate to them, if you can warm them up by saying, how much you appreciate what they've done, and especially a Taurus, they like to be appreciated for what they've done. And if you can warm them up, then they're more receptive if you want to ask them something that you want them to do. So there's different ways you can kind of like pre-pave what it is that you want to accomplish by understanding a person's moon.
So Amy previously said that her sun and moon was Pisces and Sagittarius. So okay. Still what, because she had said she's mostly water and fire, and then she said sun moon is still Pisces and Sagittarius. So does that, that's fire and water. So does that mean she might have an internal conflict within herself, or how she communicates?
Yeah, that is another thing that happens. So it's like nothing is a mistake. Our charts are perfect because they offer us opportunities to learn about ourselves, learn about engaging with other people. But the thing is, with a Pisces sun, she's going to be really really sensitive, and a little bit on the dreamy side. And the Sagittarius moon, there can be conflicts there, because the moon's going to come back when somebody pushes her button. She's going to kind of come back and and maybe say some things, because, you know, Pisces is also very wise. And she may say some things and then say, oh my goodness, I shouldn't have said that, and go off and kind of hide for a while. But so there can be can be a conundrum just because of water and fire. But on the other hand, water and fire can support each other perfectly, in the sense that, you know, it's like when you cook something on the stove, you know, you heat it up and then you can cook it. So that's like using water and fire in harmony. And to understand that she's, you know, it's like you're highly sensitive. And Pisces is also a very spiritual sign, very compassionate, a lot more Christ consciousness type energy. And fire, by its very nature, is reaches for the heavens, and it's like energy. You know, the fire people relate to the world through energy, and so it's very easy to take her, you know, for you to take your fiery moon and use it to reach this, to activate and enhance your spiritual connections. So that's how you can work them together, because, you know, take the strengths of one and take the strengths of the other and put them, you know, so, and then try to mitigate the parts that neutralize each other.
Okay, so going through that page was asked if Capricorn is a water sign.
Capricorn is an earth sign.
But so then she responded to that as, I must have water in my chart someplace. She's an emotional sensitive. Right.
And what can happen is that she, you know, Paige, you might have Capricorn in a, you know, in an earth sign, but then we get a little more involved in the astrology, because the house that it may be in may be the cusp of it may be a water sign, and so that's going to add an emotional feel to the whole, you know, like to Capricorn. Like, let's say it's in a house that's like we'll say it's in the house that's the Cancer is on the cusp of. So that makes that house, even though it may have a particular theme, it makes that house more sensitive, and so that will color, that will soften this earth energy. And so, you know, I'd like to ask Paige, are you sensitive especially to like earth things, like the environment, to the what's going on at the earth? Because it'll play out in different ways. You know, sensitivity will play out either in a, you know, like in earth. If it's in earth, it'll be more sensitive to the environment. If sensitivity, you know, is in water, then it'll be more sensitive to emotions and what's going on in the world. And I mean, you know, there's different ways that it plays out. These things will play out.
She did answer yes when you said she was sensitive to the earth.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to bring you back to cusp, because a lot of people might not understand the astrology chart. The cusp is where, and she also said she's sensitive on personal things. The cusp is, I'm going to bring you back to basic astrology again.
Okay. So let's go back to the cusp. So you've got this astrology chart. It's like a pie cut into like 12 pieces. And so each piece is called a house, and it has a theme, like, you know, your physical body, and like how you feel, your money and wealth, and how you feel about yourself, and communication, and your family, and, you know, love and romance and fun and your environment on around. So now when you are born, we've got your snapshot of all the planets where they are, and you have, you know, a degree so in other words, when you're born, you have a snapshot, and that fits onto the chart, and depending on what time of the day it is, and, you know, what latitude you're in, and those sort of things, there will, you know, your rising sign will be in a particular sign. like Page's was in Sagittarius. And so that starts the sign for the first house. So that's like the cusp of the first house. So each time you move to another house, there is a sign that starts that house. And it's sort of like, it doesn't quite rule that house, but it has a huge influence on that house. And so, then you go to the next house, and just when you start that next house, there's another sign. So whatever sign is at the beginning of that house, when that house first starts, is what is called a cusp. And so, so this house will say, it's the third house, which has to do with communication. And typically, under ideal, perfect circumstances, that house is a Gemini house. But let's say you're born, and like we'll use Page's example of being Sagittarius. So that's Sagittarius starts the first house, and let's say she's got a normal chart. Then Capricorn would start the second house, and then Aquarius would start the third house. And so they would add their influences to, they would like color the themes of those houses with their particular energies. I hope that makes sense.
I think that made sense, but I think what I want to give you, because we're coming up on the top of the hour, I had one more comment on Facebook and one more on Zoom, and then I want you to have time to, because I know you have a special, and I read your article. It was very good. So do you feel you want it? I'm wondering if you want to take another comment from Facebook before we go through what your February special is.
Sure.
Okay, Amy is saying, I really have a lot of troubles with knowing what I want and how to communicate that. I often think I shouldn't have said something. Boundaries are troublesome. Remember, she was the Pisces Sagittarius.
Right. Yeah. Water has a terrible time with boundaries, and water people have a terrible time speaking up for themselves because they don't want to rock the boat, because then they don't want to feel the feelings. So they're perfect. They're really successful people pleasers. And so, yes, I can see that.
And then the last comment we'll take before we get in, before you share the wonderful thing that you had. Paige was going on in our Zoom room. She has a Libra sun and a Capricorn moon. Now,
okay.
Knowing my little bit of astrology, that can be she can also have some conflict within herself. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah, because Capricorn is a perfectionist. I mean, we always hear about Virgo being the perfectionist, but Capricorn sets the standards way up high. And so with a Libra moon, I'd like to ask you, Paige, if you find that...
Actually, your moon's Capricorn, sun's Libra.
The Capricorn moon. If when you get stressed, you nitpick at yourself, and you don't think you did it good enough, and you're not good enough, and you just nitpick at yourself. I mean, that's something that a Capricorn moon will do to you. It'll make you feel really unworthy, because Capricorn sets the standards so high. And in the Libra, Libra's afraid to be alone, so they want to connect, and so we got the little nitpicking going on in the back of your mind that you're not good enough, but you want to connect. So yes, there is a conundrum that goes on there, and I don't know what your gates are in human design, but that would enhance that conundrum that's going on inside. Will be enhanced in your through the gates, and you'll see more of that theme play out in those gates.
Well, thank you, Elaine. I want you to share with our audience the special. Again, I'll put in the comments if you didn't get a chance to read Elaine's article on the communication style on her website, I'll put that in the comments. But you have a special going on this month. Is that correct? Right.
Yeah. Because it's February, and communication is so important in relationships. It's like, it's like fundamental. especially if you want something that's going to last a while. And it could be between your partner, or your parents, or your kids, or your coworkers, or even your boss, or your customers, whatever. If you understand, what you're dealing with, first of all, if you understand yourself, and then if you understand who you're dealing with, then it's so much easier. And I'd like to invite all of you to take this information and notice now in your conversations with yourself, notice yourself and notice how you engage with other people. And just take this elemental information and just notice and see what happens. But what I'd really like to do is invite you to dig deeper, go deeper, explore who you are, and discover more of how you can, what it is that you really like to do, that you can communicate, so you can communicate what your needs are more effectively, and especially between a particular person. So what I've created is basically it's a two-person reading, for the price of one, because I do up your chart, all your charts, and the chart of whoever you want to know about, like your partner, and then we come together and we have a conversation about it. And your partner is welcome to be there. So it's like, everyone gets to know. It's like we like to connect all the dots and help you understand, so that you are able to not take things so personally. Or maybe if you're a fire person and you blurt things out and then you feel like, oh no, I shouldn't have done that, especially if you have an open throat. Know that you are doing this because this is the way you are designed, and you are doing your purpose. So the whole theme underlying all this, of course, is to help you understand who you are, so that you can live yourself more fully and express yourself more fully, so that you can be the piece, the player, play the role that you are supposed to be here in this world, and for all the rest of us to benefit. But so I invite you to come to my website and sign up for a session. I've discounted it to $130 from what normal price is, so now it's just $267, and that's kind of like, two for the price of one. So I invite you to be curious about yourself and be curious about who you talk to. And I'd love to work with you.
Well, thank you, Elaine. Mary Kay says, thank you for this enlightening session.
Thank you, Mary Kay.
Everyone, next week, Karen will be returning with part 2 or part 3. I'm never sure. But she's going to be talking more about burnout. Thank you. Bye now. I've posted the links both in the chat, and they're under the Facebook replay. And you will be sending out the replay tomorrow.
Okay,
bye.
Great. Bye.